There is a sign on Interstate 10 in Arizona that can light up orange in the middle of a clear afternoon. It says three things: pull aside, stay alive. It does not tell you when, it does not tell you where, it does not tell you that the danger it is warning you about can arrive faster than you can finish reading the sign. Interstate 10 is the deadliest road in the state of Arizona. In one 6-year stretch, it killed roughly 483 people. Across an 8-year window, it recorded 447 fatal crashes, more dead than any other highway in the state. Not a mountain pass, not a cliff road, not a hairpin curve carved into the side of a canyon. It is flat, it is straight, it is, for hundreds of miles, one of the most boring drives in America. And that is the point. The thing that makes this road lethal is the same thing that makes you relax on it. You have driven a road like this: wide lanes, open sky, a speed limit you treat as a suggestion. You were not afraid because there was nothing out there to be afraid of. That feeling, that easy, settled, nothing to worry about feeling, is the first thing the desert takes from you. Interstate 10 runs 392 miles across Arizona. It comes in from California at the Colorado River, climbs through the low desert, cuts straight through the heart of Phoenix, drops down through Tucson, and runs out into New Mexico past the last of the desert towns. For most of that distance, it is exactly what you are picturing: 2 or 3 lanes in each direction, creosote and dirt and pale mountains to the horizon. A posted limit of 75 that a lot of people read as 85, and it is always full. Commuters stacked bumper to bumper around Phoenix. Truckers hauling freight between the ports of Los Angeles and everywhere east. Families crossing the state on vacation, watching the mile markers tick down. Retirees chasing the warm winters. Everyone, all at once, all moving fast. This is one of the primary freight corridors in the country, the main line between the ports of Southern California and the rest of the South. On any given day, tens of thousands of vehicles move through the desert stretch alone, and hundreds of thousands more pour through the Phoenix and Tucson metros. It is not a lonely road. It is one of the most heavily used pieces of pavement in the American West, which means that when it fails with a great many people on it. 2 things on this road kill you. The first is the road itself and what it quietly does to your attention over 100 flat miles. The second falls out of the sky, and by the time you can see it, you are already inside it. Start with the road. A straight desert highway is a machine for switching off the human brain. There is a name for what it does to you out there: highway hypnosis. The scenery stops changing. The wheel stops needing correction. Your eyes stay open and pointed forward, and somewhere behind them you stop driving. You cover miles you will never remember crossing. You arrive somewhere with no memory of the last 20 minutes, and you think nothing of it because you made it. Now add speed. At 75 miles an hour, your car covers about 110 feet every single second. Glance down at a phone for 2 seconds. Reach across the seat for a drink. Let your eyes close for one long, tired blink. You have just driven the length of most of a football field without seeing any of it. On a city street, at 30, that is a scare and a hard heartbeat. Out here, at this speed, with a loaded semi in the next lane and a stopped car somewhere ahead, that is the whole story, beginning to end. There is no shoulder wide enough to save you, and no time to use it if there were. There is only the distance between you and the thing in front of you, and you are erasing it at 110 feet a second. The desert does not punish you for the mistake you would make anywhere. It punishes you for making it at 80, and it gives you every reason to make it. The cruise control is set. The radio is low. The last town was 40 minutes back, and the next one is 40 minutes ahead. Nothing has happened for an hour, so your body decides, quietly and wrongly, that nothing is going to. The second killer is the one people underestimate because it does not look like a killer until it is already on top of them. Dust. Arizona has two kinds. There is the haboob, the wall you have seen in the videos, a rolling brown mountain that can stand thousands of feet tall and stretch as wide as 100 miles. That one, at least, you can see coming. You have time to be afraid. The one that does the killing on Interstate 10 is quieter, and it is worse. It is called channelized dust. A gust lifts loose soil off the open ground, funnels it across the lanes like water through a pipe, and drops your visibility to nothing in a matter of seconds. No wall on the horizon, no dark line in the distance. One moment you can see a mile of highway in front of you, the next you cannot see your own hood. Dust is the third deadliest weather hazard in the entire state, behind only heat and flooding. It does not need a monsoon. Arizona has a monsoon season, running from the middle of June into late September. And that is when the great haboobs march across Phoenix and make the national news. But the dust that does the killing on this stretch of interstate does not keep to the calendar. It answers only to wind and dry ground, and out here it has both for most of the year. Channelized dust can rise in any season out of a sky that looks completely clear on a day you would call beautiful. The desert takes one long breath and the road in front of you simply disappears. San Simon, Eloy, the Picacho Flats, names most people driving through have never heard, attached to ground that manufactures the dust that does the killing. This is not wild desert doing what deserts have always done. Much of it is made. For a century, this land was farmed: cotton, alfalfa, cattle. Then the water got too expensive, or the market turned, or the farm simply failed, and fields that had been plowed and stripped of their native brush were left bare. Loose dirt worked over by generations of tractors holding nothing down. Now add a drought that has run across the Southwest for more than 20 years. What you have, sitting right beside the busiest highway in the state, is thousands of acres of fine, dead topsoil waiting for a wind. When the wind comes, it lifts that soil by the ton and carries it straight across the lanes. Arizona has spent real money trying to hold the ground still, planting cover, treating the surface near San Simon, fighting what the engineers call fugitive dust. They are not fighting nature. They are fighting the consequence of how this land was used, and then used up, and then walked away from. The dust on Interstate 10 is not an act of God. It is an inheritance, and it is getting worse, not better. Every year, the drought deepens, the water table drops, and more marginal farmland goes fallow and bare. The supply of loose dirt beside the highway only grows. The state can treat a few thousand acres near San Simon, but it cannot regreen the whole desert, and it cannot make it rain. Every dry year loads the gun a little more. And there is one place where all of it comes together, a 2-mile stretch beside Picacho Peak, the sharp cone of rock that rises out of the flats between Tucson and Phoenix, the one every driver on that route knows by sight and photographs through the windshield. That 2 miles is the deadliest dust segment on the entire road. Since the year 2000, it has killed at least 8 people in more than 50 separate crashes. People slow down to look at the peak. The ground around it has been trying to kill them for decades. There is an older kind of history to that particular piece of ground. Picacho Peak is a state park now, a 1,500-foot spire that hikers climb and travelers pull off the highway to photograph. It is also a battlefield. In April of 1862, a small and violent skirmish was fought in its shadow, the fight often called the westernmost battle of the American Civil War. For more than a century and a half, people have been dying at the foot of this rock. The Interstate simply found a new way to do it. Then, on an October afternoon, it did. On October 4th, 2011, a dust storm rolled across the Picacho area, about 54 miles northwest of Tucson. It did not build slowly. It came across the lanes and took the daylight with it. In minutes, the highway became 3 separate pileups, around 30 vehicles, cars and trucks stacking into one another in the brown dark, each driver braking for a wreck they could not see until they were part of it. A 70-year-old man was killed. More than 15 other people were hurt. The Interstate, the main artery across the southern half of the state, was shut down for hours while crews pulled the wreckage apart and carried the injured out of the dust. This is the mechanism, exactly, and it repeats every time. You come over a low rise at 75, the world goes brown, you stand on the brake with both feet, the person behind you going the same speed, blind in the same cloud, does not know you have stopped until they are already in your back seat. You did everything right, and it did not matter, because the driver behind you did the same right thing 1 second too late. The dust came back. It always comes back. 2 years later, almost to the same week, it did something worse. On October 29, 2013, a fast-moving dust storm hit Interstate 10 near Picacho Peak and set off a 19-vehicle pileup. Up to 7 tractor-trailers were tangled in it. Loaded semis, some of them, folding into passenger cars at highway speed. 3 people were killed. 12 more were hurt, several of them critically. The interstate closed in both directions. Medical helicopters came down onto the highway itself to lift out the worst of the injured. It took hours to count the vehicles because they had stopped being separate vehicles. One of the dead was Gordon Lee Smith, 76 years old, from Meade, Washington, a man who got in his vehicle far to the north and drove down into Arizona onto a flat ribbon of interstate on an ordinary Tuesday and never drove back out. He did not die on a mountain. He did not die in a flood. He died because the air turned to dirt and a truck he never saw was still coming at 70 miles an hour into traffic that had already stopped. That is the part nobody pictures. It is not the dust that kills you. It is the weight behind you still moving when you have already come to a halt. Because a dust pileup is not one crash. It is 20 crashes stacked into 10 seconds. Here is why it turns so deadly so fast. On an open interstate, everyone is traveling at roughly the same high speed. When the visibility drops to 0, that falls apart. Some drivers brake hard, some only slow a little. Some keep going because they are more afraid to stop than to drive blind. Now you have cars doing 70 and cars doing 20 in the same brown cloud, and the difference between them gets measured in bodies. Add the mass of a fully loaded truck, which cannot stop in anything close to the distance a car can. Add spilled fuel and fire. Add the simple fact that once the first wreck happens, every vehicle arriving behind it is arriving blind, into a wall of stopped metal it has no way to see. Every one of these crashes had a warning, a sign, a forecast, a gust of wind a mile back, and every warning came too late to matter because the thing it was warning about moves faster than a decision, and the desert was not finished. 14 years after that first pileup, on the same road, in the same dust, it happened again. This time it took children. In April of 2025, a thick dust storm crossed Interstate 10 near Casa Grande and caused a fiery 22-vehicle pileup. 3 people died. 2 of them were a brother and a sister, Mark Eide, 14 years old, Katie Eide, 17. They were from Casa Grande, right there, local kids on their own highway. They were driving to the Dairy Queen at Picacho Peak. That was the errand. Ice cream, at the foot of the rock everybody photographs. The third person killed was Edgar Ivan Medina Vargas, 25, from Iowa City. When the dust hit, he slowed down. That is the thing you are told to do, the careful thing, the right thing. He was struck from behind by a semi. The semi was being driven by his own father. A man survived a dust storm on Interstate 10 and then had to carry the fact that the truck he was driving killed his son. 2 kids going for ice cream. A father and a son on the same stretch of road. That is not a statistic. That is one afternoon on one flat piece of highway in April. The road has one more cruelty in it, and it is aimed at the best part of you. In June of 2025, on Interstate 10 in Tucson, near the Speedway Boulevard exit, a woman named Stephanie Marie Codina pulled over. She was 42. With her was her son, Antonio, 11 years old, a boy his family called Daddy-O. They had stopped to help. Another driver was in trouble with a disabled car on the side of the interstate, and Stephanie and her son got out to do the one thing that decent people do. They were both killed. This is the part of Interstate 10 that does not care how good you are. The instinct to stop for a stranger, to help, to not just blow past someone in trouble, is the instinct that puts you out of your car and onto the edge of a road where traffic is still moving at 75. On this highway, the shoulder is not safety. It is a lane with cars in it that simply have not hit you yet. When the sign says pull aside, it means all the way off. Past the white line, past the gravel, as far from the moving road as the desert will let you get. Stephanie CDS Tina and her son did the humane thing, and the road took them for it. Not all of this happens out in the empty desert. Some of the very worst of it happens in the middle of the city. The single deadliest stretch of Interstate 10 is not out by Picacho at all. It is in Phoenix, between mileposts 144 and 146, where Interstate 10 knots together with the Loop 202 and State Route 51 in a tangle of ramps and merging lanes. There is no dust here, there is just volume. Some of the heaviest traffic in the state, threading through one of the most complicated interchanges in the state at freeway speed, day and night. Out in the desert, the killer is the sky and the emptiness. In the city, the killer is the exact opposite. Too many cars, too close together, with no room to recover and no time to react. Same road, same number climbing. Two completely different ways to die on it. And then there are the deaths that have no weather and no traffic to blame at all. Wrong-way drivers entering the interstate at night. Headlights coming straight at you in your own lane. At a closing speed, no seatbelt and no airbag was ever built to survive. Drivers who fell asleep on a road that never turns, never climbs, never gives the brain a single thing to hold on to. Drivers who had one drink too many and 100 empty miles to feel sure of themselves. Most of the 483 were not killed by anything exotic. There was no haboob in the report, no 20-car pileup, just a lapse, a drift, a wrong ramp, a 2-second glance, the kind of small human mistake you have made a dozen times and gotten away with, made one time at 80 miles an hour on a road that keeps no margin for it. The state has spent years fighting its wrong-way problem on its own, with alerts, with warning systems, with detection cameras aimed at the off-ramps. The problem does not go away because it is not really a road problem. It is a human one. And this road only raises the price of being human to the highest number it can charge. And surviving the crash is not the same thing as surviving the road. This is the low desert. In summer, the ground around Casa Grande and Eloy runs past 110 degrees. If you walk away from a wreck out here, or you are pinned in a car with no air conditioning and no shade, the heat becomes the second danger, waiting patiently behind the first. Help has to reach you across long, open miles, through the same traffic and the same dust that caused the wreck in the first place. The desert does not stop being lethal just because your car did. Go back to the number. 483 people in 6 years. 447 fatal crashes, 392 miles of road. Dust ranked the third deadliest weather in the state, most of it concentrated on this one highway. And here is the thread that ties all of them together, the dust deaths and the speed deaths and the wrong way deaths alike. Almost none of the people counted in that number believed they were on a dangerous road. Nobody photographs Interstate 10 and posts a warning about it. Nobody grips the wheel crossing the flat Arizona desert the way they would on a cliff road with a drop. The road looks like nothing. It looks like the safest, dullest, most forgettable stretch of the entire trip. That is the disguise. The danger is not that this road looks deadly. The danger is that it looks like nothing at all. Arizona knows exactly how bad this stretch is because it spent millions of dollars building a machine to argue with it.
Along 10 miles of Interstate 10 near Picacho, the state installed the first system of its kind found anywhere in the world. 13 sensors set along the highway measure the amount of dust in the air. Radar watches for blowing dust across the lanes and out in the distance. A weather radar tower can pick up a storm coming from more than 40 miles away. And when the dust rises, the speed limit signs change on their own, dropping the limit from 75 miles an hour to as low as 35, 10 miles an hour at a time, forcing traffic to slow down before the cloud ever arrives. It cost about $6.5 million. It has been running since 2020. In its first few years, it activated around 50 separate times. Think about what that actually means. One stretch of one American highway is so reliably lethal that the state built a radar network and a self-adjusting speed limit
for the single purpose of fighting the weather over a few miles of road. And still, people drive through it too fast. A speed limit that lowers itself to 35 only works if the driver obeys it. And on a road built for 75, 35 feels like a standstill. The system can see the dust coming from 40 miles out. It cannot reach through the windshield and lift your foot off the pedal. The last decision on Interstate 10 is always yours. And the desert has learned exactly how people tend to make it. Because the one thing you cannot do on Interstate 10 is get a second try. The desert does not warn you twice. It gives you a clear sky and a legal speed and 100 flat miles of nothing. And it asks only that you stay sharp for every one of them. The one time you do not, there is no wall to catch you, no shoulder to save you, no curve slow enough to survive, no wall, no warning, no second chance, just a flat, straight road and a cloud that was not there a moment ago and the weight of whatever is behind you. Pull aside, stay alive. 4 words on an orange sign standing in for 483 people who never got the chance to read them in time. So the sign lights up orange over the lanes in the middle of a clear afternoon, and it tells you the 3 things it always tells you. Pull aside, stay alive. Now you know what it is standing in for. It is standing in for a 76-year-old man from Washington who drove down into the state and never left it. It is standing in for 2 kids from Casa Grande who were only going to get ice cream at the foot of Picacho Peak. It is standing in for a mother and her 11-year-old son who stopped to help a stranger. It is standing in for a young man who did the careful thing and slowed down, and for the father in the truck behind him. These were not thrill seekers on the dangerous road. They were ordinary people on the most ordinary road there is, doing the most ordinary things a person does: driving home, getting ice cream, helping someone in trouble. That is the thing to carry out of here. The deadliest place in Arizona is not a cliff or a canyon or a curve with a name people say in a low voice. It is a flat, straight, forgettable line of interstate you would never look at twice. And on that road, on a clear day, in any season, the air can turn to dirt and take your vision away faster than you can read the sign that is trying to save your life. You will not see the wall. There is no wall. There is only the moment before, when you can see the whole desert, and the moment after, when you cannot see your own hands on the wheel. 483 people, 1 flat road, and a sign that lights up orange over the lanes, telling you the only thing it can: